Welcome, everyone. This is the Mo Show on Rock M Radio. I'm your host, Chad Moller. I was a longtime PR guy for Mizzou Athletics, and I started this podcast to share the experiences and the friendships that I made over the years and bring those to Mizzou fans and have a chance to meet these people a little bit behind the scenes and talk about Mizzou and the sporting world in general. So this is episode number 3 of the show, and I'm really grateful that you chose to join in. And I'm very excited to bring you my next guest. He doesn't really need much introduction, but if I'm going to be a professional podcaster, I've got to do an introduction. So here we go. Tiger fans know him really well. He's the winningest football coach in Mizzou history and a recent inductee into the College Football Hall of Fame. So you know who that is. That's Coach Gary Pinkel. And just a quick setup, of course, Coach came to Mizzou from Toledo in 2001. And when he retired after the 2015 season here at Mizzou, he had won a Mizzou record 118 games. What else? 5 conference division titles, 10 bowl games in his 15 years, 6 bowl wins, 2 teams that finished in the top 5 in the country, 10 first-team All-Americans, academic All-Americans, NFL draft picks. He goes on and on and on. Anyway, I had the honor of being Coach's PR guy for his last 14 seasons, and we had a great run, great experiences together, and that brought a lot of excitement and joy to Tiger fans that I know. So I thought he would be a fun guest to have on. So I hope you enjoy this visit. And without further ado, here's the old ball coach himself, Gary Pinkel. Coach, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Hi, Chad. How you doing, buddy?
It's great to have you on the show, and it's just a new thing I'm starting, so appreciate you being on the front end of it, and looking forward to visiting and having Tiger fans get to hear what you're up to. So, okay. I got a bunch of questions for you. I don't think any of them are bad ones, but I guess you'll judge me at the end, like you always. You're coaching, so I thought we'd just kind of start chronologically. You grew up in the Akron area. And obviously football is such a big part of your life. So thinking back to your childhood, what were kind of the first memories you have of football growing up, whether it was playing or watching it or just talking about it? What were some of the early memories related to football?
Well, I'm going to reveal how old I am here. I better just pray not do that. But
I'm with you.
When I liked football, I used to run around my house when I was 10, 11 years old, and I'd put socks in my shirt so I had shoulder pads on.
Okay.
And I started playing a little football probably a long time ago. But it was I really enjoyed it for some reason. I kind of was very attached to it, and my mom and dad were very positive, and that's what I chose sport wise. Got into basketball a little bit, baseball, little league, and all that kind of stuff. But football, that was the one that kind of brought me closer together to being a part of it.
Do you think that's because Ohio is kind of known as a hotbed, a cradle of coaches, I think is one of the nicknames, right? It's such a big deal in the state of Ohio.
Yeah, I think so. And of all the skills there is in baseball and all those things, one thing I was pretty good at, I could catch. Not that they threw that much back then, but at the end of the day, I could catch. So that's why I kind of leaned more and backed off the other one, just leaned on the football part of it. Pee-wee football, you're playing from you're 9 till you're 12 years old. And then, you were going to high school, move up that, and then if you can, college, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of where I was. And it was something that I was very, very interested in. When I was in high school, my dad got tickets to see a team play up. I know it was oh gosh, what was the team? I'm trying to think of the one that I think it was the Packers. Yes, and so when we were late to a game, my dad took me to. He got tickets, someone gave it to him. We couldn't afford to do it, and we're running up to the stadium to get in and trying to get anything. And who would we ever expect from the Green Bay Packers head coach? Do you know who the head coach is? The Green Bay Packers, the great head coach,
Vince Lombardi. I'm going to guess, right?
Lombardi. So Vince Lombardi. I went like this. I was stunned. I said, "Dad, that's Vince Lombardi." He got out of a limousine and was walking up. He had a Russian hat on. They weren't playing in the game, but he was at the championship game we were watching up in Cleveland. And he came up to me, put his arm around me and said, talk to me about, you get good grades and, football is a great thing for being a part of your life and make you a better young man and things like that. And little did you ever know when that little get together that I would become a coach and football would be my life.
Yeah, that's a great way to come up and be around that kind of thing. And I was going to ask you, if when you were a kid growing up, did coaching ever enter your thoughts, or was that something that just kind of happened as you went through your playing days and all that?
Well, I think when I was growing up in our side yard, my buddy, I don't know, might have been 8. I've been 8, 9 years old, 10 years old. Right on. My brother was 5, and we would have boys, and I'd be the quarterback and coach my guys, go against his guys, went back and forth, and nobody could beat us. Nobody could beat us. And I'm not being cocky or but at the end of the day, I was coaching when I was 10, 11 years old, and we were pretty good at the time. So you think back to those memories that kind of. Little did you know, I would ever go that direction and live my life.
You always told us that tight ends were the best athletes on the field, and just so you know, we never believed that. We just always went along with it so you wouldn't get mad at us, right?
Well, tight ends are probably the most needed. To this day, I would suggest. I think the Chiefs have a pretty good one, and
they do.
So on and so forth. But yeah, I was. Took a lot of pride in playing that position. It was hard for me,
of course,
wide receiver until I went to wide receiver in high school too. I was a big wide receiver, and then when I went to college, all of a sudden we're going to teach you how to block and being on the line of scrimmage, and so I really struggled early in that when I was in college.
I gotcha. So yeah, that takes us to Kent State, and obviously you had a chance to go play at Kent State, and people know this, but you got to campus shortly after that National Guard, the tragedy happened on campus. Take us back to what it was like when you came on campus, and that had to be just kind of an incredible time to be there in the middle of all that.
Yeah, I committed them in April of my senior year, and I was committed to them and going to Kent State University. And May 4th of that year, that's when the 4 kids were shot by National Guard at Kent State University. It was like the whole world stopped. And we lived about 45 minutes from Kent, Ohio. We lived in Akron, and Cleveland was north of us. So yeah, that was absolutely devastating. You're young at the time. You just turned 18. You're not sure what they're going to do. Are they going to close the school down for whatever? But we went in as freshmen and so on and so forth. And it was a very tragic time. I mean, there was a lot of lessons learned there, and it's a very sad and unfortunate. There was loss of life. But I think that, the thing that we did was, I remember the first year. So I was up in my girlfriend's room, and we looked out and this is a year later. Okay. I'm there 1 year, and it's the anniversary issue, for lack of a better term.
Right.
And this is it. And I see National Guard running up and down the streets outside the window looking down. And this is,
Wow.
there was nobody hurt, but there was quite a bit of violence and people angry and anger. So anyway, that was a huge moment, for everybody. And at the end of the day, through time we healed, but it was something that, it was very unfortunate it happened.
Yeah. That's an amazing thing to be part of. Obviously not positive, but just momentous, occasion in that community. So on to the better stuff at Kent State. You guys won a conference championship. I think it was 1972, and it was the first one the school had ever won. Is that right, in football?
Yes, it was. We had a guy on our team named Jack Lambert, who
heard of him
in the NFL Hall of Fame, middle linebacker.
Yep.
And a guy named Nick Saban, the guy that it turned out got into coaching profession, and we both got into it because of Don James' influence. We can talk about that later, but that was and when we got there, it was, and we did the same thing when I came in my coaching. When I saw Coach James, I met him. We had meetings, and then we go out and we have our winter conditioning in the mornings at 6 o'clock in the mornings, 7 o'clock in the morning, and it is toughest thing you've ever been through in my life. We had players quitting, we had players taking their shirts off and throwing them, and they didn't care. This is a standard of what we're going to do to make ourselves stronger, faster, quicker. And we got to be mentally tough. We got to work hard. We got to stop and finish. All those things. That's what we have to do. And I hung in there. I wasn't going to quit, but there was a few days out there thinking, I woke up earlier in the morning. I said, well, I really got to go to this. I call and tell them I'm sick. And I said, well, that probably wouldn't be very good either. So, but that was a difference maker, in that football program. And I experienced it as a player. So we'll talk later. But when I became a head coach, we'll re-enter that whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I was going to bring those guys up, but you beat me to it. What was Jack Lambert like to play with? He just seemed like he was just this madman on the field. That I assume he was fun to be a teammate with.
Yeah, Jack was great. He was at a small high school in north of Kent, and he got a partial scholarship initially.
Really?
Wow. He played quarterback. He's 6'5".
Oh, no kidding.
At the time, he was 190 pounds. But he played quarterback and some defensive back, I think, a little bit. But, what we did, and just a great competitor. He's a different level of competitor. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame. The guy has 4 Super Bowl rings, and he'll point to all his teammates, number one. But at the end of the day, he was, he's in the NFL Hall of Fame because he was just a phenomenal guy. And so he was, a lot of things happened with him, and I'm really happy for him that he it's such a great career and had such huge influence on a lot of people.
Yeah. And then, of course, you mentioned Nick Saban. You were teammates. He was, I think, a year ahead of you or two, but any way that you knew at the time he would, get into coaching and be one of the all-time greats? I'm sure that's hard to imagine that.
It was interesting. Coach James, got me and got him. They did it separate times. So I got a phone call one day, and this is right after I graduated. I was a free agent, tried out with the Steelers, didn't make it. But at the end of the day, he came to me, and he did the same thing with Nick. And I don't know if any other people he did that on the team, but he said, would you be interested in being a graduate student, go to graduate school and learn football and be a part of our program here? And maybe he saw us, individually. He's from West Virginia. They looked at us maybe like we were like, guys that looked very committed to the program, and we could have those guys hang around here and help, build everything up around here. So isn't that amazing that he did that? And I remember one time, one of our duties was we were charged of the study table at the library with all the freshmen. We had to be there, we not with guns or anything, but we sat around, we make sure they studied, do all the right things and all those other things. And just that how did that ever happen? It did, but Nick looked at me and we were there one day, we're talking about playing. He goes, what do you think? What do you think, man? You think coaching college football would be good? We just talked about it. And again, this is the students are studying around it. We're talking real low. But then I think we both just said, I said, I think I might give it a chance. Why not? I'll be going to graduate school, so that'd be good too, and a positive. And then the next day or something, he said, hey, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to get it done. Now, he was a year ahead of me. Okay. So this is when I was finishing my senior year and I still looking at football. And so he jumped in right away, and I jumped in, right away after I graduated and after my senior year. And it's interesting how it all worked out. He will go down as the greatest football coach in the history of college football. And I don't know, looking at his numbers, I don't know if you could ever do that again, to do what he did. And and it's what an incredible accomplishment. And so there's the guy named Don James. Here's the guy that had this. My head coach there had massive influence on me, and it was and I applied it, all that I learned from him, as anybody would if you had a mentor like him.
That's right. Well, as great as Coach Saban was, one thing you'll always have on him, Coach, is you were inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame before him. So
Yes.
I'm sure you'll use that sometime, right?
Yeah, I guarantee he'll use it.
All right, so you took us into how you got into coaching. You joined Coach James's staff as a GA at Kent. And then you moved with them to Washington, right, for 1 year, and then I think you were a receivers coach, and then you went to Bowling Green for a couple of years.
Yeah, what I did was I was finishing up undergraduate school at Toledo. He took the job at Washington, and he called me up and said, you can come here, you can continue graduate school there. But if you want to come here and be a graduate assistant, they're not going to school here. They're just coaching. And I would have you coach the tight ends. So I'm 22 years old. Yeah. And he's telling me he's going to give me a position to coach. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think it's obvious that he believed in me and as it went on. And so I did that. I said, let's do it. My wife, we jumped in the car and we ended up going out to Seattle, Washington. I was there that whole year. And the thing I found out later, but I kind of figured out, was he wanted me there because I played for him. He wanted me there because the players would know that. So they're going to come up to me and say, what's he like? And how positive I would talk, and I would help them through the tough times because he makes it tough. I mean, it's as tough as any coach to train players how to think, react, and all those other things. And I think that was something that, certainly I had a huge impact. And so that was my first full-time coaching job. Then I got hired at Bowling Green, a full-time job. Okay, I got hired at Bowling Green in Ohio, who I hated as a player at Kent State because they're both in the American Conference.
Right.
First opportunity to be the receivers coach there, and so that was something that was for me my shot. You got to get in the door. I got in it, and Coach James had some he had obviously a big impact on me going there and what I was doing.
So you were at Bowling Green for a couple of years, and then you went back to Seattle. I think it was 1979. And
it was
you were there for
for
what 11 years, and
pretty good run. What happened was I'm there. We got done with our second year, and I've had some other coaches were calling about me to go visit their schools. And after my second year, a full-time coach at Bowling Green. And I went with our offensive guys to Purdue just to talk to them. And they were like, yes. Well, I get there and I get a call and it's Coach James. And what you want to talk to me for? So I call him and he said, Coach, he said, this is exactly the whole thing. I said, Coach, how you doing? Fine. He goes, what are you up to? I said, I'm at Purdue trying to make myself a better coach. He said, good. Okay, I got something for you here. Okay, the wide receiver position job's open. I got 5 people that I'm looking at to take it. You're one of the 5. If I offer it to you, will you take the job? That was my interview. That was not the interview, but that's my interview. Okay, what Gary Pinkel did, Gary Pinkel said, well, Coach, I'm really interested, but I got to call my wife, and tell her that, I want her to understand, that she's committed to doing this too. And he said, and he kind of was grumbling a little bit. You could tell. I said, so Coach, I'll get back to you as soon as I get a hold of her. I don't know. It might be a while. This is when we didn't have cell phones. We were still making phone calls on the deal. And so Carol James, Coach James's wife, tells me years later, he got on the phone with her and said, you know what? I offered him the job and he didn't take it. He wanted to talk to his wife. And Carol said, isn't that what you want your coaches to do, to include their wives and all that sort of thing? I didn't know. I didn't know that he was upset at me at the time. Oh my gosh, that was. But that was my break. I'm going to go to University of Washington, Pac-10 at the time. Won lots of games, Rose Bowls, Orange Bowls. I mean, all kinds of stuff there. And I learned how to be I learned how to be a real good football coach, be good at what I did.
Right. Hey, and you were on staff with a guy named Bob Stoll, who obviously Missouri fans know well from his days as head coach here at Mizzou. And I know you got good stories on Coach Stoll. I'm not going to ask you to divulge anything crazy, but didn't you live with him at one point when you were at Washington?
Yeah, he's a great guy. So you got most of that staff was, I think they had 6 coaches that were at Kent, Coach James took him with him, and he hired 3 other ones. So we had a bunch of coaches, Ray Dorr and some other guys that were on the staff and really did a good job. And so, yeah, that was something that was really important. And so, Bob Stahl knew me. And so my first few days there, staying in a hotel, I had to get an apartment and all that. And my wife's going to come up later. And so I go into the, I walk out of the bathroom. I hear he's going, and he's sitting half naked at the mirror in the bathroom. And he's going uppity, uppity, up. He was talking to me because he didn't know I was up yet. He's going uppity, uppity, Gary Pinkel, pink man, uppity, uppity. And I think he might have been naked too. So, wow, this is something. But by the way, all those coaches, and especially those guys that were from Kent, I had great relationships with. They had a lot to do with Coach James hiring me. But those guys all went on to be head coaches and just great people. And they won lots of games, lots of games.
Yeah. And at Washington, obviously you had great success, and it was 1990, which was ended up being your last year at Washington. You guys you won 10 games, you won the Pac-10, you won the Rose Bowl, finished, I think, 5th in the polls. Was that kind of the catalyst to you, to others looking at you being ready to be a head coach somewhere? Do you think that kind of catapulted you to that?
I think always coordinators are you look at, because it's a tough position. It's your big responsible position. You're almost like a head coach to the offense or the head coach to the defense. And I think that's what I think for some reason, I think that's how the whole thing works. And so for me, I was looking at it as an opportunity. I didn't know, if it would happen, but later on, right after that, obviously got a call from Toledo, and we went in a different direction from there. My stay at Washington, 11 bowls, 12 years. My last game I called plays, so we were playing Iowa in the Rose Bowl. That was my last game calling plays, and we beat them there. And I think we had top 5. We had top 5 of the nation. Mm-hmm. And so, it was little did I know then, a few weeks later, I'd be getting a call. And before you know it, Nick Saban calls me. That's the first person that called me. And he was the head coach for 1 year at Toledo, and he was going to get hired down, I think, at LSU. And he calls me up and he says, he said, I'm going to be, he says, Pink, oh, guys call me Pink then. Hey, Pink. So what I'm doing is I'm leaving. He says, I'm going to go down and coach at LSU. I can think of about 8 or 9 guys, but there's one guy that I think's, good enough that can do a great job here. And he told their AD that too. And that's you. He said, would you be interested? And I said to him, should I be interested? And he said, right. Yes, you should. He said, in this league, this is a very, very good job. And I knew a little bit about that just from my background. So anyway, I end up going on interviews and, obviously with Nick Saban, talking highly of me. And I think they were 8-2 or something that year. This is his only 1 year he was there. And I think he certainly had influence on me, and obviously Coach James helped it. And before you know it, I find out that I'm the head football coach at the University of Toledo.
Funny how that happens, right?
It really is.
So now you're at Toledo. You're building your program. 5 years in, you guys won 11 games, I think it was, in 1995, and something. This isn't really a question; it's just a fact that I think is really cool. At the end of that year, you played Nevada in the Las Vegas Bowl, and the bowl season was the very first time the new overtime rule for college football was implemented. It was put in just for the bowl games that year.
So we had experience with it. So the next year,
right.
we've worked through some of the ins and outs.
Right, and it just so happens your game goes to overtime against Nevada, and you guys ended up winning. So I just think that's a pretty cool distinction to know that you're the first coach to win an overtime game in Division I history.
Yeah, was that crazy? My kids said, they were up in the stands, and any overtime, they think that you should take the ball, score, it's over with. Okay. Well, that wasn't the way that worked, though. You both have a shot, so you would go on defense. So they're on the field. It's the first time overtime. They're not sure what it's about and everything. And all of a sudden, they do the flip of the coin and everything. And Toledo wins, and Toledo is going to go. They're going to play defense first. And so they said, Dad, all those our fans up there were ripping you, saying, "What are you doing? He doesn't know what he's doing. You take the ball, you score, you win. They don't have to go out there again." And Dad used to see they were. That's the way people told me that. Anyway, bottom line is, we won the game, and we were undefeated that year. We had one tie, and I think we were 11-0-1. I think I don't know what the number was. And that was the only undefeated year I ever had as a coach, and any coach. You got to be a little bit lucky, but that's a very memorable moment. And I was a part of the first overtime game in the history of college football.
No, very cool.
Crazy.
Yeah, and so speaking of overtime, I know the NFL rules are different, but what did you think about the Super Bowl this last year? Niners win the toss in overtime, and they choose to take the ball. Obviously, you can make a case for either decision, but obviously it didn't work for them, and that's mostly because of a guy named Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and I think what happens is, you have to look at your team. You have to look at what you're best at. You have to be able to analyze what they're going to do. So those things are real important. And that adjustment was just made prior to, I think. It hadn't been out for a while. Am I right?
Yeah, this is the first year they played it that way. Yeah, that's right.
So
that's right.
Anyway, there's lessons learned and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And but I really felt my kids laughing about. I got looking around, and they said, "Dad, they were just booing you." They said, "What is he doing? Sucks, man. I mean, what are you doing?" And anyway, so it's kind of funny how things work out.
Yeah. Well, us fans, we know a lot, so we like to let you know. Hey, so yeah, we'll fast forward a little bit. Toledo in 2000 ended up being your last year there. You guys had a great season. You won 10 games. You had a huge win at Penn State early in that season. Do you think that win kind of launched you again, maybe to people took a look at you at a different level program after that win?
I think all the things that you have for your accomplishments, different things, different that. I think they are for the certain eye and the certain ear that people want to hear or see. But that game at Penn State was a good Penn State team, and I had met Joe Paterno through Coach James, so I know Joe. I met Joe Paterno, and so. We got that game out there, and the stadium's packed like 95,000 people, and we're just methodically coaching and playing. And before you know it, we're down with that game. We're down with like 5 or 7 minutes left in the game, and we're winning by I don't know the exact thing, like 8-9 or something. It was a 2-score game, right? And boy, my players played. I mean, I was so proud of them. What I did is I take notes for the media stuff and during the game. So second quarter out, so I can reflect and prepare when I go in and talk to them. And, what I did on mine with 5 minutes left, I put like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like a little kid, and every minute cross off another line. And people thought I was taking notes. I was just saying, get this game over with. Minute 1. 2, 3 people asked me, "Where are you writing?" And I said, "I was writing notes for the press conference." That's all I told them I was doing there.
Yeah,
and then we won the game. So we win the game. I'm so proud of my players. We win the game, and my players the seniors came to me and hugged me on the sideline there, and then I looked for Joe Paterno, and there's a line completely across the field of my players. My players didn't come to hug me; they wanted me. I thought that was the greatest thing in the world, and all this, And so I was that's one of those games you'll never ever forget. I think there's no question about it. My head was on the a big win, great season. And this guy is got potential to be good. He's trained by a guy named Don James, and all the things you're associated with prior to come to that. And so I was very pleased with that.
Yeah, that win at Penn State was obviously huge for Toledo's program, but in a roundabout way, it was probably big for Mizzou's program because that got you on the radar when Mizzou was looking for a new head coach after the 2000 season. And take us back to that process and what you remember from that time when Mizzou reached out to you and you got in the mix for the job here.
Well, yeah, that's something that, at Toledo, I didn't really have to leave or want to leave, but, I was getting to the point there of 10 years and this might happen. And I got a couple schools that called me and my agent who take care of those things, name's John Caponegro, he takes care of those things for me. And then, the Missouri one, comes up. And all of a sudden, I'm at Toledo. We got 10 starters coming back the next year. They won the championship year after I left.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking the University of Missouri, and I said, I just got to take a look at this. And I told, our athletic director that. I met Mike Alden there. And I don't think I'd ever come there if it wasn't for Mike Alden. And the reason being is they had one winning seasons in 20 years or something. I mean, it was like 17 years. I mean, you just kind of, you look back at kind of, you take a breath there a moment, this is, I'm going to change jobs and I might be able to get a better job than that. But I always thought it was potentially, Missouri was really potentially a good place to go because of, you got St. Louis, Kansas City. What are you doing here? You got a state by yourself. If you can sit there and hold on to those, they play great high school football. And so I did get that call, and then I went out in the interviews, and I liked it there. I had a lot of people tell me not to do it. Mr. Saban was one of them, and when he was saying that, he was a little bit colorful when he was saying it. He tried to make his point, but yeah. I would have never taken it. They had just done some facility stuff. But Mike Alden, he was the one that I thought, I told him, when I took the job, I said, there's going to be a time when I'm going to need you, okay, in building this. I said, you're flipping a program that had 2 winning seasons in 17 years. And this is going to be hard. This is going to be remarkably hard. And so we talked about back and forth, but I just told him that, there's going to be a time when I'm going to need you. And there was, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So we went on the interviews and I was excited to do it. I guess, it was my moment to go on to play at the highest level of college football as a head football coach, which is hard to get those jobs and it's hard to keep them. And so that's kind of what I did. And it turned out obviously pretty good.
I'll always remember the story you tell. You get the job at Mizzou, you have your introductory press conference. You go back to your hotel room after it's over to kind of relax. You get a call from your assistant coach, Dave Yost, who you brought with you from Toledo. And he had some news for you about, one portion of the roster construction. Tell that story for us.
You mean just the personnel issues?
Yeah.
It
was some bad news.
Yeah. And it was Dave Yost too, both of them.
Yeah.
And they sit there and we looked at the staff and they said, Coach, first I was standing and he said, Yost said, Coach, I want you to sit down. I'm not sitting down. David, what do you want to tell me? I mean, I know him really well. And so he goes, he says, Coach, they have 2 scholarships. So they have 2 in their secondary. They have 2 corners, and on scholarship. And by the way, one of them's having surgery tomorrow morning. So we only have one. We only have one corner on, and it's. I don't want to be mean to anybody, but it's so irresponsible. That can't happen. Especially when you've been there 4 or 5 years. So, I heard that and I'm going, oh my gosh, what did I do? This was after I accepted the job. This was after I,
and, too late to go back now.
Yeah. Too late to go back now. But it was so much more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I knew it was going to be easy. You don't have that, 2 winning seasons, 17 years. You don't have that, those things don't happen very often. But at the end of the day, we found a way to get it done. You had a great staff. We changed the attitude of the players. We got the players to be team players. They got the players to learn to be able to be mentally and physically tough in adverse conditions. All those things we had to just go up before you can get up here and play that way. But we just stuck with it, and we did. But at the end of that first year, this first couple of years was crazy. When we played Michigan State at the end of my first year, we had the May 4th shooting, not the May 4th shootings. We had the
September 11th. Yeah.
September 11th.
Yeah.
We had September 11th. And I just never forget, when we had to go play our last game against Michigan State at Michigan State. And I go to the game and my players quit on me. Okay. They quit on me. You might say, well, coach, they didn't quit on you. They just, they had a bad year. It was a tough year, a lot of things going on. But I took it as they quit on me. Okay. And I said, well, to myself, I said, you know what? My players are going to quit again. But they're going to quit when they're going through our agility drills. They're going to go through when we're developing mental toughness. That's when they're going to quit. Okay. Because we're going to raise this bar up here and take this place to a different level. And I met with the staff the next day. I brought them in. I said, you know what? This is attention to detail in everything we do around here. They got to do it at high level of excellence. They have to do it right or they have to do it again. Now, we've been doing that, but our intensity level with the message was different now. Okay. After that, after getting beat, Michigan State just exploded on us. So anyway, bottom line, I wanted to turn that negative into a positive. But it was still, ways to go.
Sure. And you talked all the time about how, and you mentioned it before even, that, it didn't happen right away. It took several years to kind of get the foundation of Coach James's program in your mold to get it going.
Yeah.
And you touched on Mike Alden briefly before, but let's get into that a little bit. 3 losing seasons, even though there was progress shown, but the numbers show 3 losing seasons in the first 4 years. And that's kind of when you told Mike, hey, I need you now. And he was there for you, right?
I had a meeting with him after every year I was there. I just met with him for coffee on the Sunday, the day after, because I had to go recruiting, the day after our last game. And so Mike and I got together, like we always did. And we just, that's when my players quit on me, And so what happened was I looked at him. I sat down right with him, and I says, Mike, my first thing I talked, I said, I told you several years ago, 3 years ago, okay, I told you this was going to be tough, okay, and I knew it was going to be tough. It's even tougher than I ever thought it was. But I told you that time too, when I took the job, there's going to be a point when I'm going to say, I need you. I need you. And I said, well, Mike, I'm telling you this right now. I need you. Okay. You want me to turn this? We can turn this around. But I'm going to need your support, 100% support. When people sit there and start throwing curveballs, and that's okay. That's normal stuff. I get it. And, he looked at me and said, shook my hand. He walked away. He didn't sit there and say, well, you got to win this year. You got to win this. He just believed what we talked about several years ago. It came to fruition when it happened.
This has been a preview of The Mo Show with Chad Moller. For the full episode, be sure to subscribe to Rock M Plus at rockm.plus.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. We'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.